Every day on this channel, I go through everything Elon said on X in the last 24 hours. And here's how many times Elon posted about each subject today. And I would normally start with the technical stuff, but out of respect for what just happened to Charlie Kirk and to his family, I am going to start with that today. If you don't know, there was a shooting incident today at Utah Valley University where Charlie Kirk was debating, I guess, some of the students. He's a prominent conservative activist, and today he suffered a fatal shot wound. And Elon said the shot looked real bad, but I sure hope Charlie makes it somehow. Sean McGuire says the left lectured us for the last decade about the dangers of violence from the right, from the assassination attempts of President Trump to Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO, being murdered, and now to Charlie Kirk. The danger was actually on the left. Elon quoted that saying, "The left is the party of murder." Cernovich replied, "Not only the left, it's people who fund them, like Soros, Bill Gates, and Reid Hoffman. Some patsy boomer who was radicalized by agitprop is not who anyone smart considers responsible for today. That's a fact." And Elon says, exactly. Sean says that Charlie had an infinite ceiling. He could have been president someday. He could have done anything he wanted. His combination of talent and principles was unbelievably rare. Humanity lost one of its greatest warriors today. We must carry Charlie's torch onwards. And Elon says, yes. Matt Van Swol says that Elon was right. A couple of weeks ago, Matt posted, "If I'm being perfectly honest, I think I'm beginning to lose the will to be tolerant." And Elon replied, "If tolerance means the end of Western civilization, then we cannot be tolerant." And so reflecting on this post, Elon says, "If they won't leave us in peace, then our choice is fight or die." Murray says, "I just left my office because a liberal female coworker was cheering about Charlie Kirk being shot and said, 'Hope he's dead.' How is that okay to even say out loud at work or anywhere? So now it's normal to celebrate shootings just because it's political?" And Elon says, "Ostracize anyone who this evil and tell them so to their face." I'm assuming he forgot to type a word here, likely encouraging this evil. Constantine says, "When you tear out a man's tongue, you are not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might say. My thoughts are with Charlie Kirk's family." And Elon says 100. MSNBC just speculated the Charlie Kirk shooting could have been a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration. "I have no words for how awful these people are." Will Chamberlain quotes that saying, "They should lose every single advertiser dollar over this nonsense." And Elon agrees. Mr. King says the left-wing mainstream media, as well as figures like Gavin Newsom claiming Trump plans to be dictator, has created a climate of hysteria against right-wing figures that could radicalize any number of unstable people to engage in political violence. Pray Charlie Kirk is okay. And Elon said, exactly. Whether you agree with him or not, Charlie Kirk is dead purely because some people didn't like what he had to say. That should outrage every single one of us. And Elon says, yes. And he says yes again to Matt Goodwin, saying one of the biggest myths in our society is that it is the left who are the open-minded, tolerant ones. William Wolf says this gets even worse when you consider that Charlie Kirk, more than anyone else in America on the right or the left, built his platform making a good faith effort to model civil political discourse and debate in the public square. His entire project was built on reaching across the divide and using speech, not violence, to address and resolve the issues. J.D. Vance quoted that saying, "This is such a good point. If you actually watch Charlie's events as opposed to the fake summaries, they are one of the few places with open and honest dialogue between left and right. He would answer any question and talk to everyone." And Elon reposted that. So that's all that Elon has said about Charlie Kirk so far today. As you guys know, I run these videos on 24-hour cycles, and it's only been a few hours since the tragedy happened. So I'm going to move into the technical stuff that Elon said today, and then we'll circle back to the other political news, but just want to lift up Charlie and his family. So last night, Elon gave a 44-minute interview at the All In Summit, and Nick posted a summary for us, and Elon reposted it. I'll skip over the government stuff because we're going to come back to this later. Tesla is finalizing the design of Optimus Gen 3. He said it's going to be a very remarkable robot. Generation 3 will have the manual dexterity of a human, and it will have an AI mind that can navigate and comprehend reality. And he said there is no supply chain for humanoid robots. Tesla is making everything from scratch. It requires a lot of vertical integration, and all of Optimus's actuators are made in-house by Tesla. There are 26 actuators per arm. And Elon reiterated that if Optimus is successful, it will be the biggest product ever. And he also estimated that the production cost of Optimus, once it's scaled to 1 million units a year, should be around the $20,000 range. But I listened to the interview and he said that it's largely dependent on how much the AI chip costs. It could be $5,000 to $6,000, maybe more, just for the AI chip, whereas the price of Optimus will be a function of demand. And because there's no supply chain, Tesla had to design Optimus's every electric motor, gearbox, and the controlling electronics from scratch. And he said that creating Optimus is harder than making all of the Tesla car models, but not harder than Starship. Starship is really hard. The forearms and hands of Optimus are the majority of engineering difficulties of the entire robot. He says a big reason that our hands are so useful is a lot of what begins in the forearm. There's a lot of degrees of freedom in our hands that are very complex, and Tesla seems to be having a hard time emulating them. And he said the Optimus LLM will be included, no added subscription. And to put the problem of the hand into perspective, this is the chaos that is produced by a pendulum with just 3 degrees of freedom. Your hand has 27 degrees of freedom, 4 per finger, 5 for the thumb, and 6 for the wrist. Building a robot to conduct this orchestra of joints and tendons to pick up a coin is non-trivial. Elon quoted that saying, "Designing dexterous hands for robots is a very hard problem. Then figuring out how to manufacture them at scale is 100 times harder." And this XAI employee said there's a lot of hype around robotics, but many people don't realize that general purpose robotics will likely not be achieved without video generation models. Video gen enables large-scale synthetic data generation of worlds in which you can train robots. If we don't solve video generation, then we have to manually collect data through teleoperation human videos for each task we want the robot to perform. So once we have a sufficiently accurate video world model, it's just a matter of how much inference compute we can spend to create videos of all the skills we want robots to learn. And Elon said, true. Now moving on to the chips and FSD, Tesla is currently finalizing the design for AI5 and it will be an immense jump from AI4. He said that AI5 will be 40 times better than AI4 in some metrics. But if you're talking about strictly compute, it will be 8 times better. And it will have 10 times more memory than AI4. And the Tesla hardware team and the software team are working very close together on this AI5 chip, and both teams are co-designing the chip. And AI5 will have 5 times the memory bandwidth over AI4. And to boil it down, Elon is confident AI4 chips will still be able to achieve self-driving safety that is at least 2 to 3 times that of a human, maybe even 10 times. But V14 will be the biggest upgrade to Tesla software since V12. And he said that it will be released in a few months, which I think most people were expecting it this month. So that might have been a delay. But he did say that V14 will make the car feel sentient by the end of the year. The new Spectrum deal that Starlink paid $17 billion for will allow SpaceX to deliver high bandwidth connectivity directly from the satellites to the phone. So current frequencies aren't supported in the current phones, so hardware changes are needed, and chipsets need to be modified to add the new frequencies. And the phones capable of using this new frequency will ship in 2 years. You'll be able to watch videos anywhere in the world, and these frequencies required will work inside of a building. It won't cut off, unless it's a thick metal building, Elon said. You will be able to have a Starlink account instead of a Verizon AT&T account, but it won't put other carriers out of business. And when asked if SpaceX will buy carriers to gain more spectrum, Elon replied, "It's not out of the question. It may happen." And for Starship, Elon said they will recover Starship starting next year. There's only one version 2 Starship left, and version 3 is a radical redesign. Initially, it might go through some teething pains, but version 3 is capable of over 100 tons to orbit, fully reusable. SpaceX will demonstrate full reusability next year, catching both booster and ship, and Elon thinks that a self-sustaining life on Mars can be achieved within roughly 25 years. And in regards to AI, what we learned at the interview, a rough rule of thumb is 10x more compute will double the intelligence. Elon thinks we will continue to see intelligence scale all the way up to where most of the power of the sun is harnessed for compute. Human intelligence is currently plateauing due to low birth rates and population declines, and human intelligence will eventually start declining. Elon guesses AI will be smarter than absolutely everything starting next year, and by 2030, Elon guesses AI will be smarter than the sum of all humans. And an update from Neuralink, there are now 12 people around the world with Neuralink implants. Collectively, they've had their devices for 2,000 days and accumulated over 15,000 hours of use. We look forward to continuing to explore the possibilities of neural interfaces with all of our participants. And Elon reposted this. And Grok Code just literally cloned the entire Netflix user interface with just a one-shot prompt. From the iconic hero section to the interactive carousel, all with a single prompt and a few web-sourced image links. It's not just fast, it's the most cost-effective, state-of-the-art model out there. For the input, it's 15 times cheaper than Claude and 10 times cheaper for the output. And XFreeze walks you through a video on how to do it in Visual Studio Code with Kylo code. Elon quotes that saying it only gets better from here. And XAI's latest model Grok Code Fast 1 just landed in Klein. Elon said, cool. And Russell used to work at Tesla and he said more insights on him from my personal experience. Every meeting I had with Elon had a few simple ground rules. There was no PowerPoints. You can only talk about what is wrong, broken, or a roadblock that you need Elon to clear. And don't bring food. Keep it clear and speak about action. Elon said, bringing food is fine if you haven't eaten. Now the Iryna Zarutska story continues to grow, and I was actually surprised today to have a conversation about it at lunch with some of my fellow teachers. I kind of thought only people who were on X knew about this story, but it's now starting to get a larger reach. The CEO and founder at Intercom says I am offering $500,000 in $10,000 grants to paint murals of the face of Iryna Zarutska in prominent US city locations. If you would like to contribute to this fund, please contact KD also. Elon said I will contribute $1 million. If you don't know, she was ruthlessly murdered on public transportation by a guy who had been convicted of felonies 14 times and continually released. Evan says watching her cry alone with her hands holding her face is one of the saddest things I've ever seen. And Elon says yes. Matt Van Swol says, I don't think you understand the level of radicalization this has caused within me. I will never be the same person after watching this video. We do not have to live this way. And Elon says, this has been happening at scale in South Africa for a long time. Politics on X says this could have been your daughter. Let that sink in. And Elon says, yes. And Jesse Waters reveals the court that freed Iryna Zarutska's killer is completely run by DEI. A Harris donor magistrate with no law degree, a clerk who calls herself a DEI consultant and a racial equity organizer, and a judge named DEI Champion of the Year. And if you're not aware of this story, the killer of Iryna Zarutska was black. So when Brown, who was the killer, was arrested yet again in January of this past year, a Democrat judge, who I will add was a strong supporter of Kamala Harris, released this insane criminal once again without requiring him to pay any bail. Miss Stokes wasn't elected. She was nominated by the clerk in Mecklenburg County. The sitting clerk is Alyssa Chingari. On her LinkedIn page, she calls herself a clerk and a DEI consultant, and her life mission, and a racial reparations equity organizer. Miss Stokes was nominated by Judge Carla Archie. Judge Archie isn't just any judge. In 2019, she was the DEI Champion of the Year. Is this starting to make sense? Did a woman die because of DEI? This is DEI court and they have blood on their hands. And if the people in robes are on the same side as the bad guys, that's suicide. DEI died when Kamala lost. It's illegal, and releasing felons with dozens of arrests for social justice is a crime against the country, and Elon says, wow. So North Carolina members of Congress are now pushing to remove from office Judge Teresa Stokes, who as foretold was behind the release of the murderer of Iryna Zarutska. This person has no business being in any position of power ever again. Hold her accountable. And Elon says remove her from office and the chain of people that put her in a position of authority. And the full video at minute 12:42 shows the first man trying to help Iryna about 2 minutes after she was attacked. And Elon says, good man. And just fair warning, I'm not showing a video, I'm not showing any gore. It's just Iryna's eyes looking up at her killer. So this is your warning. Not the Beast says, I am the father of 3 girls. This sickens me more than anything else I could possibly witness, and it's a wake-up call. Fighting the woke Mayan virus is the destiny of the men of our generation. It must be done to protect our women and save our country. And Elon reposted this. And Conor McGregor says, I cannot escape the images circulating of the innocent, harmless Ukrainian woman on public transport, brutally murdered from behind for nothing. I wish the absolute worst for her killer, and I am neither shy nor sorry in saying this. The absolute worst is deserved. Slava Ukraine, rest in peace Iryna Zarutska. If you think, with me as president, that this happens on Irish soil without repercussion, use your head and think again. Any optical political verbatim is worthless to me in a scenario like this. Save it. And Elon reposted it. The FBI director Kash Patel says the brutal attack on Iryna Zarutska was a disgraceful act that should never happen in America. The FBI immediately surged into action to ensure justice is served and to make clear that violent criminals will never be allowed to walk free again. President Trump is committed to restoring safety to every city, and I want to thank Pam Bondi for delivering the federal charges that will hold this perpetrator accountable. And Elon reposted this too. Matt Walsh said this image will define the new civil rights movement. We have a right to use public accommodations without being butchered in our seats. We have a right to save communities where violent animals are rounded up and caged. This is not just a local crime, it's a civil rights issue. And Elon quotes that with the 100 emoji. And then Elon posted a 4-minute clip from Matt Walsh, and he captioned it saying, "Time for massive change in America." Matt criticizes the media outrage over alleged racially charged language by conservatives rather than the act of the violence itself. He cites crime statistics that black on white violent incidents significantly outnumber white on black incidents, and he argues that the media downplays the racial motivations behind such crimes, contrasting this with the immediate labeling of the George Floyd incident as racially motivated. The Rabbit Hole posted, "All lives matter," and Elon reposted it. And Matt Walsh again says this image provokes deep, visceral rage in every father who sees it. I can't even fully articulate it. It's primal. We want scalps. We want heads on pikes. And Elon says, yes. And Gad Saad says, take a moment each day to thank Elon for having bought this platform. It is inconceivable to imagine what the world would otherwise look like. To reiterate, he deserves the Nobel Prize for having served as the ultimate defender of free speech. And Elon salutes. Stephanie says, the last time I genuinely cried over the news was October 7th, but watching that footage of Iryna Zarutska today has me f***ed up. She bled out on a train alone because no one rushed to help her. She was 23 years old, leaving her job at a pizza restaurant just trying to go home. She died for no reason. She died at the hands of a person who had no business sharing public spaces with decent human beings. I'm so sick of this shit. It feels like, how can you politicize her murder? But then you look at all the liberal accounts and they aren't saying a fucking word about it. It doesn't fit their narrative. They're still reporting it using the word allegedly. They're publishing sob stories about how his mom kicked him out of the house weeks earlier and was taking him to and from shelters. How his family was surprised to hear he'd do something like this, blah, blah, blah. Elon often talks about deep empathy, about how the West is falling, about how weak men are becoming. The shit all sounds hyperbolic until you zoom out and look at what's happening. The real systemic issue is the fact that there is simply no redemption for some people, and we need to stop pretending like there is. Elon says, yes. Philosophat says, I'm now seeing boomers on Facebook sharing the Iryna Zarutska story. That's how you know it's broken containment. As I said earlier, hearing about it at school shocked me, and Elon reposted this. JD Vance says, Daniel Penny prevented this from happening on a New York City subway. Instead of thanking him, many hated him for it. America needs more men like this. That is Daniel Penny. He stopped a black man from doing something similar, and he ended up killing the man in the process. Elon responds with 2 American flags. Constantine says, this is genuinely unreal. Black Lives Matter tore the world apart over a police interaction in which there was literally zero evidence of racism. But when a man kills this poor girl and walks around saying, I got the white girl, what we get is we don't know why he did it. If you're trying to understand this, imagine Derek Chauvin or Daniel Penny walked around after their incident saying, I got the black man. Do you think the media would be saying, we don't know why he did it, and talking about how they were hurting? This is disgusting. And Elon reposted it. And JD says law enforcement arrested this thug 14 times. It wasn't law enforcement that failed. It was weak politicians like you who kept letting him out of prison. And he was saying that to Roy Cooper, who said that the murder of Iryna is a horrible tragedy and we must do everything we can to keep people safe. Only a cynical DC insider would think it's acceptable to use her death for political points, especially one who supported cutting funding to law enforcement in North Carolina. That's when JD calls him a weak politician. Elon quotes that, says 100. And Congressman Tim Moore says Iryna Zarutska should still be alive. Her blood is on the hands of everyone who enabled this 14X career criminal to walk free. Today I was proud to co-lead Representative Stefanik's Keep Violent Criminals Off of Our Streets Act to end cashless bail. And Elon reposted it. End Wokeness says this is a mind-blowing statistic. 43% of all murders in the US are committed by only 3% of the population. Black males aged 14 to 49. Elon said, wow. And a racist cult leader urged his followers to kill all white people, including newborn babies, calling for their death and destruction without exception. And Elon said, "Who is this?" Grok says it references a video from the Nation of Islam, a group known for combining black nationalism with Islamic teachings, led by Louis Farrakhan, who has a history of controversial statements, including those promoting black supremacy and anti-Semitism. And Yunta says that working on autonomous ride-hailing at Tesla is personal to him because the public transportation has failed to keep our beloved spouse and children safe, and neither unions nor city mayors care anything about it. He says, "Thus I am taking this matter to solve it with my own hands for my family." And Elon responds with a heart. And Caroline Levitt just spoke for over 5 minutes about the murder of Iryna Zarutska, and she finished it off by decimating legacy media. She said, "Perhaps most shamefully of all is the media. Many outlets in this room decided that her murder was not worth reporting on originally because it does not fit a preferred narrative. Many of the journalists spilled plenty of ink trying to smear Daniel Penny." And Elon reposted it. And the New York Times best-selling journalist Andy says, "By every metric, the killing of the young woman in Charlotte, North Carolina was more brutal than George Floyd's death. She was not a violent felon, nor in the act of committing more crimes when she suddenly found herself bleeding out on a train following a knife attack from behind. But politicians won't respond with urgency because they know those outraged won't kill, burn down neighborhoods, occupy entire areas, and rampage like those on the left did in 2020. Elon said they don't understand what's coming, but they will. And another person posted a clip of Matt Walsh. Here's one excerpt. He said, "By raw numbers, the young black males in particular are an order of magnitude more violent and more likely to commit crimes than any other group in the country. Black men are 5 or 6% of the population, but they commit the majority of murders. That makes black males in America more dangerous than perhaps any other demographic in the entire world, let alone in this country." And Elon says, "Wow." Andrew says that poverty is a root cause of crime. You want to stop crime? Stop poverty first, and crime will always follow. Lauren quoted that saying, "Poverty does not cause crime. Poverty does not make you stab an innocent bystander multiple times in the neck. There are Asian countries where people live on dollars a day and they are still safer than any American city. Just stop with the excuses." And Elon reposted it. And Rabbit Hole posted from page 2 of George Floyd's autopsy. And so Elon posted a Grok analysis. And Grok says it reveals a screen with fentanyl, methamphetamine, and other substances alongside findings of arteriosclerotic heart disease, suggesting multiple factors may have contributed to his death, challenging the narrative of sole neck compression. Mike Benz says, "New law. 3 strikes, the judge is out. If a criminal has been convicted of 3 violent criminal offenses already, the judge becomes civilly liable to the families of that criminal's next victim for any violent crime committed within the next 5 years. Aaron says, "Yes, plus we should also not allow magistrate judges." And Elon agrees. And Nick says, "Breaking, Biden Judge Gia Cobb has blocked Trump from firing Lisa Cook, arguing that literal mortgage fraud is probably not cause for firing a Federal Reserve governor. DEI judges are destroying America. We have to find a way to remove them. The Fed is apparently accountable to nobody." And Elon says, "Wow." Angry Taxpayer says, "This too will be overturned. This is all-out judicial war going on." And Nick says, "Activist judges fear no accountability, so they'll get more and more brazen." And Elon says, 100.
Did you know the judge that released this guy didn't even go to law school? Yeah, not even a lawyer. Yeah, these magistrate judges that are making a decision to release these people without bail, yeah, they're not even lawyers. They didn't go to law school. They didn't pass the bar. They just got appointed to be judges. No training required. Oh yeah, and that's the case in states like North Carolina, South Carolina, West Virginia, Texas, Arizona. They don't even have to be lawyers, but they can be judges. They don't have to go to law school. They don't have to pass the bar. However, they sit in judgment over people who did. How the fuck is this a thing? How the fuck do we have judges who didn't even study the law? How did this ever become a thing? That's one of the most insane things I've ever heard.
Elon replied to that, "Fake judges." And he quotes this video showcasing some data over the years of the U.S. murder rate by race. And he says the murder rate spikes up dramatically around 2020. And here comes 2020. And yeah, he's right. The murder rate rises sharply. Megyn Kelly says, "F Black Lives Matter. It's bullshit DEI criminal justice reforms. The knee-bending, candy-ass judges who went along with the lies about racist policing and who created the revolving door for criminals arrested dozens of times and for the clearly mentally ill and dangerous. All at unspeakable costs to the innocent young women of America. F them all, and Elon says they are contemptible. Christopher says we need more police, more prisons, and more asylums, and yes, we can arrest our way out of the psychotic criminals murdering people in the streets problem. And Elon agrees. And we have another case of murder in Manhattan, and Elon reposted this. And 4 months after Carmelo Anthony killed Austin Metcalf at a track meet, authorities still refused to release the video. And remember, over $500,000 was reportedly raised for Anthony's family via Give a Send Go. Elon said, release the video. And Benny Johnson says, and there you have it. $3.3 million from left-wing NGO the MacArthur Foundation went to Mecklenburg County to reduce the jail population. The very county that released career criminal DeCarlos Brown 14 times. Insane. Follow the money. Democrats want criminals on the loose. Elon quoted that saying, these NGOs should be sued into oblivion and their boards of directors ostracized from society. And Alex Karp said at the All In Summit yesterday, if we don't want this country to be what Europe is now, you have to close the border. Both sides have to step up. Everybody who's criminal, I would make it so they self-deport because I'm going to come tomorrow in a way you don't like. And Elon reposted it. And Amuse says to make it easier to recruit black judges, multiple states don't require a magistrate to have college degrees, much less law degrees. Those same states require barbers to have thousands of hours of training and licensing regardless of skin color. Elon said it should not be vastly easier to become licensed as a judge than licensed as a barber. And Amuse says prior to Elon's purchase of X, we weren't allowed to share stories of election fraud. The drive-by media routinely suppressed coverage of stories like Milwaukee election director Kimberly Zapata's conviction for fake military ballots. When the stories are covered in the local news, the reports always include the standard line, instances of voter fraud are very rare. Elon quotes that saying a more accurate legacy newsline would be that instances of voter fraud are rarely caught, especially where showing your ID to vote is made illegal like California and New York. Jeremy says America is going to be dealing with the problem of criminal-loving judges for a generation, showcasing the judicial appointees of Biden versus Trump. And Biden just appointed more judges. Brian says unless we remove them. Jeremy says the only way to remove federally appointed judges is via impeachment. If a judge hasn't actually committed a crime, it's pretty hard and quite rare. A concerned parent says if they won't uphold the law, they are impeachable. And Elon said they can and will be impeached. And Amuse says states like Maryland don't want to catch non-citizens voting illegally. They refuse to cross-reference their voter rolls with citizenship databases. Take, for example, Francis Bagnall has been illegally voting in Maryland for 30 years. He was caught by accident. And Elon reposted this. And here's data from all Swedes born 1958 to 1980. And it shows what proportion of violent crime would be prevented if recidivism stopped after the Xth conviction. So almost 80% of violent crime would be prevented if recidivism stopped after the first conviction. A 10-strike law preventing people from leaving prison after that many violent crime convictions would reduce period violent crime by 20%. 5 strikes would cut violent crime by 40%. 3 strikes would halve violent crime. And 2 strikes would remove 2/3 of violent crime. And Elon quoted that saying a second conviction for aggravated violent crime should get life imprisonment. And Elon spoke a little bit about the woke mind virus in his interview yesterday.
Nature abhors a vacuum, and if you take away religion, then I think you actually you get something in its place which is actually worse than what was there before. I mean, it's like destructive, basically. You get like the woke mind virus, filling the hole that religion used to have, taking the place of religion. You get these dystopian de facto religions that are very, very self-destructive.
And we got another clip that he posted about him not being to DC in a while.
You're in Palo Alto and not Washington, D.C.
I'm at Tesla Global Engineering Headquarters in Palo Alto.
Yeah. So no more Washington, D.C. You're back at work. You're focused. Yeah?
I haven't been to D.C. since May.
Okay.
That was a hell of a side quest.
That was a good side. Any lessons from your time in Washington, D.C.?
The government is basically unfixable.
Elon, only.
I applaud David's noble efforts in this. It's good to have talented people in the administration. But at the end of the day, if you look at our national debt, which is insanely high, the interest payments exceed the Defense Department. War Department budget, and they keep rising. So if AI and robots don't solve our national debt, we're toast.
And so Elon quoted that saying, toast. And Peter Hegg quoted that clip, paraphrasing Elon saying, look, I think I can handle making humans a multiplanetary civilization, but getting politicians to stop spending too much money is just not feasible. And Elon had a laugh at that one. And the New York Times finally wrote about the Iryna Zarutska story, but they capitalized the word black and they made sure that the word white in the story was lowercase. Elon quoted that saying, why is white always in lowercase, but black is uppercase? The New York Times is deliberate, precise, and comprehensive in its anti-white racism. Graham Linehan quoted that story saying, what the f***? And Elon reposted it. But they actually posted an article back in 2020 saying why we are capitalizing black. And here's another article explaining why we will lowercase white. There is at this time less support for capitalizing white. Mike Benn says the Jenga tower of mental bullshit they built to justify permanent racial discrimination against white people in news reporting. Elon says F the New York Times. Here's a media narrative chart for reporting violent crime. If the attacker is a non-white shooter and the victim is white, the narrative is gun control. If the attacker is a white shooter and the victim is non-white, the narrative is racism. And Elon reposted it. In Alexandria Cortez, Daniel Penny made the subway less safe. And after Iryna was murdered on the subway, crickets. And Elon reposted that. Alex says until the left admits the truth about race and crime, its efforts to shout the right down over cases like this will only provoke more anger. And this is the truth about race and crime. And he shares data about how black men commit a huge amount of violent crime in the United States. And Elon reposted it. And that article about why we will lowercase white was from Associated Press. Elon says legacy news like Associated Press is super racist against whites and Asians. Either capitalize all races or none. That would be fair and equal treatment. But only lowercase for whites is racist by definition. And the Minister of Hungary says the Brusselian elite are pushing joint indebtedness to strip nations of their sovereignty and drag us toward a United States of Europe. They want to use the war in Ukraine as the pretext to shackle us all financially. We must look beyond the battlefield to the future of the Union itself, free nations or submission to unelected bureaucrats. And Elon reposted it. So that is everything that Elon said today. It was great to see him make an appearance at the All-In Summit, and it was encouraging to hear that manufacturing Optimus at scale is at least not harder than manufacturing Starship, especially considering we had a pretty successful recent test flight for Starship version 2. And just unbelievably tragic what happened to Charlie Kirk today. Definitely prayers up for him in the comment section. Prayers up for his family tonight. I'm sure there's going to be lots more on that story tomorrow. And I'm going to skip the outro music today and just leave a blank screen for a while. Whether you're religious or not, just throw up a prayer for Charlie Kirk and for his family. See you guys tomorrow.